Hey YouTube, Dog Magician of Team Sorcerers here, and welcome to another episode of What If Wednesday, and it's another Robot Wars 1, and we're going to talk about the result of the Series 6 grand final fight between Razer and Tornado. Now, I'm not going to get into a debate about who should have won that, because, well, it's getting old now, and it's crazy that it's still been happening years after this fight happened. And I'm just thinking, well, I mean, come on, I mean, it's been 2 decades since this fight happened. Get over it and let it go. Like, we've moved on from it. With that being said, we're going to discuss what would have happened if Razer won that judge's decision, and it was able to properly immobilise Tornado over the pit, because I believe one ruling regarding the anti-pit device was that if all of the wheels are hovering over the pit, then it counts as being pitted. At least that's what I've heard anyway. So, regardless, Razer defends the title and is the second robot to defend the UK title, with obviously the first being Chaos 2. And in fact does return the Series 7. Of course, I don't know what would have happened regarding the European Championship semi-final fight between them. Of course, if the team still retired and didn't return, it would have been a bit awkward, because it would have been the first time that a UK champion didn't return to defend the title, and then after that nothing changes. But what if it did? So at this point Razer would still be seeded number 1, and then everyone that was seeded, well, almost everyone that was seeded in the 7th Wars would have dropped down by 1 rank, although Storm 2 would have still been seeded 16th as it's the new blood champion, and Ming Dynasty wouldn't have been seeded, and instead it either wouldn't have entered or it would have taken Zorro's place, considering the team brought in 2 robots, Ming and Zorro, of course. And Razer would have taken Ming's spot in its heat. Now, I did already talk about this in a previous episode, which was what if Razer, Hypnodisc, Dominator 2, S3, Wild Thing, or Chaos 2 returned for Series 7. Go check that out if you haven't done so already, because I already talked about what would have happened. Mind you, in this situation now, obviously Razer is the number 1 seed and Tornado would be the number 2 seed. So, other than Razer taking Ming's place, and because of the way they laid out the semi-final fights, they stay in their own heats and same battles otherwise, and everything plays out the same way. You know, Razer would have defeated Metalis, Scraptosaur, Seros, and Saint Aggro and gone through. But this time, because Tornado is the second seed, it's Tornado and Raging Nightmare would instead be in semi-final 2. But again, it's hard to determine whether Firestorm and Mute would have been in semi-final 1 this time, or Typhoon 2 and Thermidor 2. As they never have the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed in the same semi-final episode. So this could go 2 ways, I guess. So let's say, for instance, Firestorm and Mute are in semi-final 1 instead of Tornado and Raging Nightmare. So Razer would have been pitted against Exterminator and beat it. Firestorm 5 would have beaten Mute, of course. Gravity would have beaten Danton Kier, and Bulldog Breed would have beaten Tough as Nails. So, and because in round 2 they usually put the highest ranking robot against the lowest one, this would have meant that Razer would have fought Gravity and Firestorm 5 would have faced Bulldog Breed. Gravity is very impressive, but I think it would have struggled against Razer. I don't think it would have ever gotten an opportunity when Razer would have just crushed it like it's nothing and then gone through. Meanwhile, I don't see Bulldog Breed beating Firestorm. It might put up a fight, but Firestorm is quicker, more manoeuvrable, and is just more aggressive, so I think it would beat Bulldog Breed, and then Firestorm becomes the first robot to make it to 4 grand finals. Then in the other semi-final, Tornado beats Raging Nightmare, and then of course the other fights play out the same way, with Typhoon 2 beating Thermidor, Storm 2 beating Grim Reaper, and Typhoon 2, Atomic beating M2. And because, with this rule, robots have to follow as similar a path as possible, it would have meant Tornado and Storm would have fought 1 round earlier, and that plays out the same way, with Storm 2 beating Tornado on a judge's decision, and Typhoon 2 beating Atomic. So we have half the same grand final lineup as before, only Razer and Firestorm are there instead of Tornado and Exterminator. So now, at this point, Razer would fight Storm 2 and Firestorm would fight Typhoon 2. Now, I have already gone over these fights in the episode I talked about before. But, yeah, I genuinely think Razer could beat Storm 2. It wouldn't be easy, but I think it would be able to. I mean, sure, Storm might be able to push Razer on the side and maybe ram it, but I feel like Razer could get underneath Storm 2 at the right angle, grab it, drag it to the pit, despite Storm 2 desperately trying to get away, and put it in the pit. Meanwhile, I also genuinely think Firestorm 5 could have beaten Typhoon 2, just came at it quickly and flipped it over. And yeah, that's that. Then Typhoon 2 and Storm 2 face each other in the playoff, and well, that plays out the same way as the grand final fight. So then Razer and Firestorm face off in the grand final, which would at this point would be the furthest Firestorm has ever gotten to. But then it's unclear who would win at that point. I know Razer more likely would, because it's beaten Firestorm 3 times, but I'm sure at this point the Firestorm team would have made more preparations for a possible future encounter to try and beat Razer. I mean, I would have hoped that Firestorm would win, to be honest. I mean, although I'm a Razer fan, it's only fair that Firestorm should have a UK title under its belt. But yeah, let's say for the sake of argument that Storm 2 did beat Razer. Had Firestorm beaten Typhoon 2, then yeah, it would have meant Storm 2 would have won, because well, the fight between Firestorm and Storm 2 would have played out the same way as in the real timeline, with Storm 2 winning the UK title. Meanwhile, in the playoff, Typhoon 2 would have just ripped Razer apart. I mean, no offence to Razer, but I don't see any situation where it could have beaten Typhoon 2. So that's one scenario. Now let's say Storm 2 and Grim Reaper are in semi-final 1. I say that because, well, in this timeline, Terahertz is the 4th seed, but got taken out early, but I feel like would have been put here anyway had it gone through. So, yeah, again, Razer beats Exterminator, Gravity beats Dance on Nokia, Bulldog Breed beats Tough as Nails, and of course Storm 2 beats Grim Reaper. So, yeah, I believe Gravity would be the only unseeded robot to get through here, so I guess Razer would have still fought Gravity and beat it, which would mean that Storm 2 would fight Bulldog Breed, and yeah, Bulldog Breed, of course, would struggle a lot here and get beaten by Storm 2, so yeah, Storm 2 goes through. Right, semi-final 2 then. So Firestorm again beats Mute, Typhoon 2 beats Thermidor 2, Atomic beats M2, oh, 2 seconds. Sorry about that. So yeah, and of course Tornado would be in this one as well, so Tornado beats Raging Nightmare. So we've got Tornado, Firestorm 5, Typhoon 2 and Atomic. Now obviously they wouldn't pit the seeds up against each other, so as a guess, I would say Tornado would fight Typhoon 2 and Firestorm would fight Atomic. And again, it's hard to determine who would win here. Yeah. At best guess, I would say Tornado is more likely to beat Typhoon 2. especially at this stage, since it was a bit slow to get up to speed, as in the real timeline, Atomic almost flipped it over 2 times. So because of this, Typhoon 2 doesn't really get a chance to spin up to full power, so after much pushing and shoving, Tornado goes through to the grand final. And as for Atomic against Firestorm, again it's difficult to determine. I guess Atomic would try 2 attempts to flip over Firestorm, but I feel like it would have a problem and not be able to get back up. And it's not lazy writing, because in the real timeline, when Atomic attempted to flip Typhoon 2 a second time, it ended up flipping itself back over and couldn't get up. So I feel like the same thing would happen, and because of this, Firestorm 5 goes through to the grand final. Yeah, it is a slightly different lineup. So we've got Razer, Tornado, Firestorm 5, the top 3 of the last wars, and Storm 2. So it's hard to say who would fight whom, really. Either Razer would fight Firestorm again, or Storm 2. Actually no, because from Series 4 onwards they would put different semi-final winners against each other from from different episodes. It would mean that Razer would fight Firestorm again, and Tornado would fight Storm 2. So that being the case, the fight between Storm 2 and Tornado plays out the same way. Storm 2 goes through to the grand final. As for Razer and Firestorm, well, again, it's hard to determine how a full fight would go, but it's more likely Razer would win. So Razer is more likely to win, and Firestorm once again has to fight for 3rd place and has to fight Tornado again. But this time I feel like Firestorm would get more lucky and be smarter. It would play out a similar way to the Series 6 fight. But this time I feel like Firestorm could flip Tornado back over on its back and not flip it over again, because that mistake cost them in the 6-4, and it would be easier for Firestorm to push Tornado around, maybe get it stuck on the arena wall. Either way, Firestorm could probably win in this situation. Then Razer and Storm 2 fight again in the grand final, and, well, I guess either Razer would win and be a 3-time UK Grand Champion, or Storm 2 would dethrone Razer and be the UK Champion. So, and yeah, that's pretty much how things would have gone down if Razer did beat Tornado in the 6-4's grand final and keep its title. So either Razer would keep its title again, or Storm 2 would win, or maybe Firestorm. But who knows? Either way, Typhoon 2 wouldn't win the UK title, and that would give Razer all the more reason to come back for the third World Championship. That's something I think I'll cover in a future episode. So yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you later. Bye.